So I wanted to come on here because I just saw the news that Donovan Raiola was retained as the offensive line coach at Nebraska. And I'm not mad about it. Let me first say that. I'm not coming here to vent or say anything negative. I I'm just surprised a little bit because there's been so much talk about other coaches in the fold, and you had coaches who have been here for a long time: Bill Bush, Ron Brown, Mickey Joseph. Mickey Joseph's a different topic. But the point is, the last one I ever thought would be retained was Donovan. There were a lot of people who had told me in this process, watch out for him because he's connected to the number one player in the class of 2024. And because of that, it could potentially lead Rhule to make a decision that is, you know, in the best interest of his recruiting class of the future and a player who could essentially change the entire course of this program. Honestly, that guy is the number one quarterback in the class. I think going to be the number one player. That's total game changer, especially when you're coming into a program when in the beginning when you're trying to find some sort of an identity and you can get a quarterback who can really sling it. I mean, that's total game changer. Anyway, I just wanted to stop in to talk about this for a second because I know a lot of people have opinions. I got on a lot of DMs, a lot of messages, and I was surprised by some of the responses. So, first thing I want to say, Donovan Raiola was with Notre Dame, then he was with the Bears, and when he left the Bears to come to Nebraska, my understanding is they were really happy and excited for him. They really had a lot of respect for him, and they believed in him as a leader and a coach. He comes to Nebraska with Scott Frost, and keep in mind, a lot of us didn't like what we saw in this first year. But Scott Frost had his choice. He could have picked pretty much anybody. He had a lot more money to spend. He was in a position with Trev where Trev was basically saying, go and get the best guy you can get. And if it costs a little bit extra money, let's do it. Let's get this thing right. And he chose Donovan Raiola, right? And so even though the resume didn't look perfect, it didn't look as good as some other college offensive line coaches who'd been at a bunch of other stops because he was more of an assistant. He's less proven, right? For some reason, Frost and Trev Alberts believed in him. What was it? It's something that we didn't see or we didn't understand, and we had hoped to see it this year. We had hoped to see the line develop a little bit more. We had hoped to see some change that would give us a little bit more confidence. Unfortunately, we saw none of that. We saw regression. One thing I will say, because you've got to give him credit, right? Not credit for something positive he did, but credit for not ruining the offensive line. He didn't have Nuruddin Uili. Didn't have Teddy Prohaska. He was working with some new transfer guys, and he was working with, guys who were perennial backups at Nebraska and who were basically makeshift at different positions, right? With that all said, it wasn't a pretty output. We didn't see something that made us say, well, this is a guy who should be retained. But it isn't something you can look at and say, okay, well, you're not the right guy. I think my take right when the season was done, after I'd kind of graded the coaches, I think my take was Donovan Raiola had a body of work that I can't judge. I can't grade it because he was given scraps. He was given injured players, and he was given guys who hadn't played much before. What was he supposed to do with that? It was a really tough predicament. Okay, now fast forward. Matt Rhule has a chance to go out and get anybody he wants. He has got keep this in mind, a $7 million salary pool for his assistant coaches. I think that's correct. Don't quote me. There's so many millions of dollars rolling around in my head because of all these other coaching hires and things going on, but I believe it was $7 million. $7 million for his coaching staff. Point is this. He could have gotten anybody, NFL coach, college coach with a big name, former offensive coordinator, I'm sure. There were a lot of options, and he was down to his final four. If you watch the video I just released in the last half hour, I just mentioned how Matt Rhule was in the recruit's house. It might have been Brock Knudsen or Sam Sledge, someone. He was in a recruit's house in the last 2 or 3 days, and he said, I'm down to 4 offensive line coaches. Donovan Raiola is one of them. And now we're here. This happened, I think, an hour ago while I was just finishing up the edit to my video. Donovan Raiola is being retained as Nebraska's O-line coach. Yeah, it's surprising, but what it tells me is these coaches, Scott Frost, the Bears, Matt Rhule, they know something about him that we don't. It's either that. It's either they know something that we don't. They're interviewing him, and they have an idea that this guy really could revamp this offensive line. He has some really good ideas. Keep in mind, former Wisconsin Badger offensive lineman, that's a high accolade itself. related to Hall of Fame Nebraska offensive lineman. Okay, so he's got the bloodline. Former teammate of Jim Leonhard, I think. Okay. All of these things packaged together. There must be something on top of that that makes these coaches who hire him think he's a good fit. Or it's what I had talked about in the beginning. He has a strong connection that is so valuable that he is selling so hard. I have to guess, okay? This is pure speculation. I know nothing of this. This is more of a joke than anything. Maybe he's going into his interviews and saying, hey, look, in my back pocket, I've got a black card. This is unlimited. This is Heisman Trophy. You want me? Listen, speculation, I know nothing of that. That's a joke, like I said. I don't know. Could it be true? Could not. I don't know. It's just, we live in fantasy land over here sometimes, so we got to explore the idea. Overall, my reaction, just initial, is I'm excited to see how he fits in with this offensive staff. Okay, I do believe that there is something that, like I said before, Scott Frost saw and Rhule saw that made them believe he would be a good fit. And if he can work with an offensive staff who's cohesive, not a makeshift one and done year, right? Like this last staff, they were in trying to figure everything out. They're going quickly. And on top of that, the injuries, like I said before, maybe you give him a couple years and he can establish a line. Maybe it'll work out. Now, there's a big risk here. Because if it doesn't work out in 2 years, I think he's going to be on a 2-year contract from what I understand. If it doesn't work out in 2 years, it's like, Matt Rhule, you hired a guy. Let me check the resume really quick. You hired a guy whose resume says offensive line coach at a high school, an intern at Hawaii, a grad assistant at Notre Dame, offensive line coach at Aurora, which I'm assuming is like a D3 school, Chicago Bears assistant line coach for 3 seasons, and then 1 season at Nebraska that went terrible. I mean, listen, I try to make sure that we don't pin this on him because I do not think it was his fault. But you can't give him any credit for it, right? It's kind of like Mickey Joseph being the head coach. It wasn't his fault. He inherited the mess, but he had one chance to bolster the resume. He didn't do it. That's kind of how I felt about Raiola. You had one chance to bolster the resume. You didn't get it done, unfortunately. It's odd. Like I said, I'm going to give it a chance. I'm not judgmental. I trust Rhule's process. I think we've all got to trust Rhule's process at this point, right? We're in for 8 years. We're in for what? $72, $74 million. There's no out. There is no, oh, well, this is going to fail in 3 years and then Rhule's gone. This is a minimum 5-year experiment. Minimum. This is Scott Frost all over again. So buy in, get excited, and jump on the train for the ride, because I promise you, we're not seeing him leave anytime soon. Trust the process. That's all I'm going to say here, because I know there are a lot of comments and a lot of people questioning it, right? Sometimes these coaches have wacky ideas and they see fits where we don't see it. The only reason this is a live stream, by the way, guys, is because I didn't want to sit down and record a video, and I thought it'd be more fun to come on here. Honestly, I thought there might be 25 people in. We've got 130 people on right now, and it's 10:45 my time, which means it's probably almost 1 a.m. Nebraska time. So everybody who's in here, thanks for coming. Tater, thank you for the $2 super chat. Maybe Matt has a different idea on how O-line works. I think that is for sure. I think their vision going forward, this new coaching staff's vision going forward, is centered around the offensive line, whereas Scott Frost's vision in the past was centered around the skill positions and the quarterback. And because he couldn't make all of those work with the offensive line, we saw things fail miserably. Whereas Rhule, I think, is going to start on the line, work the trench, and then see how everything else flows together. I think that's the key difference here. It's one of the reasons that I have a lot of faith in the offense going forward. It's a Big Ten style offense, and the Big Ten style offenses are what Donovan Raiola is used to. I mean, he comes from Notre Dame, the Chicago Bears, and he was a Wisconsin offensive lineman. Whether he's a good coach or not doesn't matter. I mean, it does matter, but take that away right now. He understands the goal. He understands the vision. When Matt Rhule said, this is the picture I'm painting, Raiola said, Jesus, that's the picture I want to be a part of. Not this Scott Frost spread offense craziness. Not this make the Big Ten adjust to us and worry about Mickey Joseph's receivers and Adrian Martinez running all over. No. Head down, drive forward, and pick up 4 or 5 yards of carry. They're both on the same page. I could almost guarantee that. Never met either of them, never talked to either of them, but just knowing who they are as people, they're in sync on that one area, and that has to count for something. Let me see here. Don't Get Me Started says, I'm not sold. I mean, why would the number one quarterback coming out of high school want to post up behind a Donovan Raiola O-line? See, what is a Donovan Raiola O-line? Let's not be disrespectful here. We don't even know what it is. Last year, I can't count it against him, just like I can't count Mickey's 3-6 record against him. They inherited that. They came into that situation. There were some serious issues with that offensive line, starting with steroid Nurdi Nuili, who couldn't play for a year, and also with the injuries and with the years of bad habits. I mean, it's hard for me to hold it against him. I do understand your point, though. I understand everyone's point who has this feeling in their gut that's telling them this isn't the right direction. Unfortunately, we're just going to have to wait and see. Judy, thanks for being a member. Thanks for the $2 super chat. I appreciate you. LSU says, if you trust Rhule, I think we have to trust Raiola. If he is the only coach we kept, then I think it tells us there's something more to Donovan than what we saw. Yes, sir. That's how I have to assume. That's what I have to assume. Sorry, Matt Rhule's thinking. It's this small sample of work is not who he is. This small sample of work isn't a reflection of what we're going to get in the future. And because of that, we need to bring him on and let him dive into our vision with us. He comes from it. That's the one thing. The one thing we know about Raiola, he is a Big Ten guy through and through. He understands what it takes to win in the trenches. He has done it himself. He has lined up against other giant guys and pushed forward. He understands the Nebraska tradition because of the family connection. There's something to be said about that. That is a resume positive, even though this year was a, like I said, I don't want to call it a resume negative. It's just tough. He inherited a mess. Tater, thanks for being a member for 2 months. I missed your comment. Where is it? You do know it's almost 1 a.m. in Nebraska. Yes, I do. Like I said, I wasn't expecting anybody to be on here. We have 127 people live. I'm really surprised by that. This is supposed to be just me giving you guys a quick reaction before I go to bed. I just didn't want to let this information sit and then have me be hanging out in the afternoon tomorrow and then talk about it and it's already fizzled out. I want to make sure everybody can get this content because they're going to be looking for it. I dropped a video tonight talking about all the recruiting, and people are already in the comments talking about Donovan Raiola being hired as the offensive line coach. So I wanted to make sure I came in here and gave you a quick take. Otherwise, I'll just get comments all day about, what about Donovan Raiola? He's hired now. You didn't say that in your video. Yes, bro, I know. I made the video before the Donovan Raiola situation, so... what do you call this? Kill 2 birds with 1 stone. I was already sitting at my desk. Let's just knock out 2 videos tonight. No problem. Let's see here. This is a topic. Rules usually. Brandon says it's 4 p.m. in Japan. This is a perfect time for you. Impromptu streams guaranteed to be better than at least 95% of whatever else is on YouTube. I would hope so. I try my best to keep it entertaining, give you guys interesting information. When they're impromptu, it means something urgent happened, right? It means something breaking. It's like the breaking news video. Although I do not break news, I am not a media guy. I'm just a reaction, entertainment person. Let's make sure we all remember. Jack says the news about the Huskers just keeps getting worse. People can say what they want about all these hires, even Dion. It's all speculation. The facts are that we're losing more talent than we are gaining. Jack, quick. Who is the talent that we've lost and what are we not replacing it with? Because to be honest, we lost Ernest Hausman. I don't know that he's coming back. Outside of Ernest Hausman, okay, Jaden Gould, I guess we can call a loss. But outside of those guys, who are we losing, right? When you talk about the decommits, Bramer's a tight end who's a 3-star. Sure, he's good. He has some potential. But Nebraska already has Thomas Fidone, who's a better tight end. Hopefully we don't lose him. And he'll be here for at least 2 or 3 more years. On top of that, you have the next class coming in, and I think one of the top prospects in the class is from the state of Nebraska, and he's a tight end as well. You lose one tight end who's, good, and you'd want to have him, but we're going to reload next season. I don't see this as that big of a loss. And maybe I'm missing something, and you can jump in and share with me who specifically we're losing and we're not being able to reload with. Pull out King. Nice emoji for your picture. Drink the Rhule-Aid, GBMFR. Yes, sir, I'm on it. I appreciate you for the $2. Every dollar counts to helping us grow the channel. Just so you guys know, I'm rebuilding my PC because I've had some issues with editing and filming, and it's an old PC. It's 2.5 years old. So I got to rebuild it. So it's an expensive endeavor. So all of the tip money and the view money and sponsorship money, that all helps because that'll go to, yeah, helping me get a better PC so that I can stream more often and create more content. We'll talk about the Jim Leonhard thing in 1 minute. I just want to get to chat. Colin says, what's the update on Pete's? I don't know. I haven't heard anything after that initial day when they said Pete's was contingent on Mickey. And now we don't know what the quarterback coach situation is. It's odd. I really wish I had an answer, but I don't know. Let's see. Tyler says the portal's opened up so much opportunity. So much opportunity. Raiola needs to keep his head down, find the trench Midwestern guys. You know, this year there are a lot more portal offensive linemen than there were last year. Now, I don't know how many of them have valuable snaps in their past, but I do know there are a lot of guys who have played at least some significant downs, way more than last year, probably twice, 3 times as many. If Nebraska can land a couple guys, that's going to really help just to increase the competition, you know? So hopefully right now it's about getting the right size and the right build because we're changing from being more of a spread offense to being a run heavy. I think we still don't understand the offense completely because you've got Satterfield who came from a Shane Beamer offense, which is a little bit more spread and pass heavy, switching over to a Rhule offense, but we don't even know the Rhule offense yet, because the Rhule offense was geared to score a lot of points in the Big 12, and now he's got to adjust to the Big 10, so it's going to be slightly different. Still a lot of question marks, right? And because there are so many question marks, we don't know fully. But the point is, if it is what I think it is, we're going to have to get some linemen who are bigger, bigger bodied, and who can drive the pile forward. It's a different type of O-line in this era of offense that we're going to see. That's my guess, but I don't know. We're going to have to find out. I'm just like you guys. I know nothing. So every day I read, every day I try and figure it out, and we get closer to finding out the truth as things go on and as they talk to recruits, because the recruits are the ones who are given the most information, actually. If you guys look at all the articles online, the recruits are saying, well, the coach told me this. Here's the next coach potential. Here's what the plan is to run, yada, yada. And then we start getting this information, but Rhule hasn't talked about it too much yet. So hopefully we get an interview from him soon and we start to have more clarity going forward. Let's see here. Judy says, Hausman isn't gone yet. Also, Rhule had a meeting with Coleman again. I'm very confident that we'll get Coleman. Now, don't take what I say, because I don't know the guy. I haven't talked to him. But I have a feeling Coleman stays. He made a very big public announcement that he was staying in Nebraska. He's very connected to where he's from. He's very tight with his family. I would have a hard time believing he leaves if Matt Rhule, the picture that we've seen of Matt Rhule, the press conference Matt Rhule, is really what he says he is. If that guy is giving off genuine energy, I think Malachi and his family are going to like him, and I think he'll end up staying here. There's a chance he could dip out somewhere like Michigan. I think he's taking a visit to Michigan, so there's a chance. But I've got to go with my gut and say that he's going to stay at Nebraska. So, Judy, I hope you're right. Hausman isn't gone yet, you're right, but Hausman is going to have serious offers. Hausman is going to have serious NIL money thrown at him. To me, Hausman's gone. I'm just going to say that. I know he had a really good relationship with Scott Frost and Eric Shenander, Barrett Ruud, the defensive staff, the old staff specifically. And because of that, I think he's going to be gone. Unfortunately, it is what it is. Rick says, when is signing day? The final signing day is in February. I can't remember the exact date. February 12th, maybe, something like that. Malachi won't sign until then, and there's a lot of guys who won't. The guys who want to enroll early and be on campus to get into the winter workouts, they're gonna sign for this first signing day in December. Let's see here. Don't get me started. It says, I feel about Raiola about the same as I felt about Matt Rhule prior to doing more research. Not happy, but not for any reason other than it feels wrong. Once I researched and listened to Matt Rhule, the happier I was. That's another thing. We don't get to hear much new from Donovan Raiola, and he's not much of a speaker, right? He's not the guy who's going to sell himself, whereas Matt Rhule really did. Matt Rhule came out. It was a really good press conference. He said the right things, and it made you believe, right? At least he had the salesman part to him. Donovan doesn't do that, so you just got to sit back and show me. But he can't show us for another 9 months. So it's like, oh man, we got to wait this entire time. Listen, I'm going to have faith, but I'm going to sit here and speculate and think what could have been this entire time while you're the O-line coach. But prove me wrong. I mean, I'm on the same boat. That's how I feel. But who knows? Don't get me started. Just got his corn upgraded to red. He's been a member for 2 months, I think. Yeah, 2 months. Thank you for being a member. Your $3 is much appreciated. Let's talk about, real quick, let's talk about our man, Jim Leonhard. So this popped up on my feed tonight. It says, on Wisconsin. So I automatically thought, right when I saw this, who wouldn't think, that Jim Leonhard was about to announce, I'm locked in, I just signed the deal, let's go. Building the defense back better. We got the spread, dual threat QB offense, brand new style with Luke Fickell, plus the classic Jim Leonhard defense. It has meant the world to me to be able to pour my heart and soul into the University of Wisconsin football program over the last 7 years. After discussions with my family, keep in mind, his family, from what I understand, loves Madison. Wife loves it there, wants to raise their kids there. Like, they are Madison people through and through. It's a nice city. It's a nice place to live and obviously to work. I've been there. It's a great place. Out of all the college towns, Madison is one of the best, okay? So at this point when I'm reading this, I'm like, okay, he's locked in on Madison. My family and Coach Fickell, I will remain the DC through the bowl game, but no longer be a part of the staff after the conclusion of the 2022 season. It's been an honor to coach these young men, and thank you to all the fans who supported us all along the way. On Wisconsin, okay. My brain, when I saw this, I was like, what? He's leaving Wisconsin? Because everything I had heard was, no, this dude wanted the head coaching job. He's a bit like Mickey Joseph. He was led to believe he was going to be the next head coach. He was led to believe he was coaching for that job. And after he beat Nebraska, to be honest with you, I thought that was what it was. Beat Nebraska. He's going to beat Minnesota next, which he failed right there. But anyway, if he did end up winning that game, I think he might have been the head coach. Now, when Nebraska got Matt Rhule, I think Wisconsin looked at themselves and said, hey, we can't take a risk, right? It was the Nebraska Mickey Joseph conversation, but with Jim Leonhard. Can you afford the risk when you're Wisconsin and you've got schools like Nebraska upgrading their coaching staffs? Purdue could potentially lose their coach to Louisville, right? Who's Purdue going to get? Probably a big name. Brett Bielema's been doing good over at Illinois. So now Jim Leonhard feels some type of way for obvious reasons because, he's an alum. It's his school. The same reason that Mickey Joseph was allowed to feel some type of way. But man, from what I read and from what I understood, I thought he was coming back. I thought he would be, for sure, part of that staff next year. My guess for the future for him, NFL job, that's probably the most likely. And if not the NFL, maybe he takes a smaller head coaching job in college, like Toledo or something. My understanding is he does want to be a head coach. The NFL has came calling multiple times before. He hasn't taken it. But yeah, we'll have to see. Either way, it's an interesting turn of events. As a Nebraska fan, I'm happy he's not staying there. There's still no chance he comes to Nebraska. Just going to keep it real. Nebraska reached out to try to talk to him, or Matt Rhule reached out to try to talk to him. My understanding is he was not interested in Nebraska at all, and that conversation didn't go anywhere. So, unfortunately, we won't be looking at him as our next head coach, but the good thing is we won't have to play against his defense. Positive note there. I do think he's going to be rooting for Wisconsin and cheering for Wisconsin's players and pushing them to stay, right? So we've seen some transfer portal guys, some attrition. Braylon Allen, who's the star running back there, you guys all know him. I'm not sure that Braylon Allen would leave now. I think Braylon Allen will stay, especially with encouragement from Jim Leonhard. And Wisconsin's going to get back to true form pretty damn quick. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Wisconsin has a clean and clear path to 9 wins next year. They can easily rebuild. They this year had enough talent to get to 7 or 8. And next year they're going to have a little bit more talent. They're going to have a better coach. And yeah, 9 wins feels inevitable. So just something to think about. I don't know. I don't know why he wouldn't come to Nebraska. Well, I mean, you can assume he wouldn't come to Nebraska because he's a Wisconsin guy, and Nebraska probably isn't the ideal place to raise a family if you haven't been. And I have to guess he hasn't been. Who knows? Just my thoughts. Someone said source. Source on what? Source on what? Oh, he's asking Roger for a source. He's messing with you. Roger's making jokes. Roger thinks he's being funny. Let's see. Michelle says she saw the news an hour ago and doesn't know about it yet. I think we're all on the same page as you, Michelle. Unfortunately, none of us know. None of us know how to feel because I think we know less. That's the key. We know less than these coaches know. So from the outside, we judge it. We say, well, Donovan Raiola did X, Y, and Z, and then we make our judgment, which is fair, and I'm not knocking you for it because I do it as well. But there's more to the story. I don't get to sit down with Raiola and have these heart-to-hearts and understand what his vision and his plan is. I don't get to understand where he might have seen some things that were flawed in the last staff, and he could have said, hey, here were the major things I saw. Here's why I should be here. And because of that, Rhule said, wow, this is a really good candidate. And out of all the staff, he's the one who's the least ruined. He's the one who's the most recent, and he hasn't had these ideas or cultural things embedded into him. So keep in mind, I don't know. I'm not in these conversations. These are strictly guesses. But anyway, guys, it's 11 o'clock at night, my time, which means it's 2 a.m. in Nebraska. I just wanted to give you guys quick content. Make sure that, I know you're seeing this video, but make sure you see the recruiting update video. I dropped that about an hour ago. That's pretty full. Gives you a bunch of recruiting update information. And I'll stay up with that as much as I possibly can. Anyway, thanks for being here. Have a good night, and I'll see you in the next one. Go Big Red.